What's going on, Crispy Gang? Thank you for tuning in to Crispy TV. With so much to look forward to in Cyberpunk 2077, what good to know before walking the streets is the history behind it. In this video, we will take an overview of the timeline and see what made Night City so fucked up. Our first major event lasted from 1990 through 2016. Though many major events happened through this period in time, war still raged on after the end of the Cold War. 3 corporate wars later granted corporations power and influence and unfettered access to Earth's resources. 2 Central American wars left many soldiers to die. Some became deserters and left the war altogether. The beginning of the end was in 1992. The Soviets were still struggling to recover, become less of a threat globally. Having grown tired of the bully tactics when aid and resources were blocked by the American government, the Soviets began to accept Eurodollars over American currency. This allowed the opportunity for a rival to emerge. The formation of the EEC, or European Economic Community, was formed, gaining superpower status. NATO collapsed as the Soviets finally made peace with Western Europe. With the dismemberment of NATO and the hardline foreign policy pursued by the Gang of Four, composed of the DEA, NSA, FBI, and CIA, were coordinating agencies isolating the United States politically and economically. This increased the suffering of the American people. Now known as a coup, these coordinating agencies made matters worse by scheming up a covert operation to manipulate European and American stock markets. A complete social, political, economic meltdown began with the crash of '94 and resulted in the downfall of American society. The following years will be marked as the collapse. This will see the deaths of tens of millions of people as a result. Mass violence erupted in the streets, mass homelessness and despair ran rapid. The country descended into chaos. All this consistent fighting and uncertainty birthed the Nomad subculture. They first appeared on the West Coast and soon spread across the nation, along with the first appearance of booster gangs. Fed up with the government inability to solve the crisis, these migrant hippies travel along the highway in their little wagons, searching for water, gigs, and escape from the man. Or they will leave your body headless in the middle of the Badlands and nobody will hear from you again. Depends on who you speak to. Among the Gang of Four, the NSA was enlarged the most powerful of the Gang of Four agencies. They will work in and out of the United States with impunity and enact their power by deliberately withholding key intel. This will come to fruition during the Iran-Iraq War. A massive intelligence failure, now known as the Meltdown of '97, occurred when the NSA withheld satellite information and photos from military and Israeli sources. For up to 2 hours, this information was held up. By the time it was received, missile couriers were already in position. The meltdown of '97 resulted in large losses for United States military assets in the Middle East. Consequently, the conflict in the region will see oil prices skyrocket with global supply shortages. As for most of the Middle East, these countries were reduced to radioactive wastelands from nuclear exchange. Like the bombs, when word got out, it blew up in their faces. Anarchy, mayhem,
Exodia! Obliterate!
obliteration. America lost its superpower status. The fallout of the meltdown of '97 and the drought in '98 positioned Texas as a powerful state, sitting on a gold mine of untapped oil reserves and advances in food production. This state gained leverage with the amount of money it was able to make. Fearful of the Texans, the then government passed a bill called the Ross Bill, aiming to unarm every citizen. Seeing this as the final straw, Texas passed emergency legislation and seceded from the Union. Texas cut off trade by stopping interstate shipments of oil, gas, food, and electronics. Alaska, opportunistically, joined the embargo, passing their own version of the Ross Bill and further hampering the national supply chain. A deal was quickly crafted with Texan and Alaska representatives, and between them, they managed to come up with a compromise, creating the three state system. This compromise kept the United States from fighting under the Civil War. California followed suit, backed by Texan and Alaskan representatives, declaring itself a free state. Nevada paid for its price of freedom, though the exact amount has been hidden for public record. As for Utah, they declared themselves a free state, mostly because nobody cared. By breaking up the Union, the new United States was born. With so much craziness that happened during this time period, it's crazy to think that our second major event in the timeline is the Fourth Corporate War. Marking phase 1 of the war can be referred to as the Ocean War. Tensions were boiling between two aquatic tech corps, the Corporation International et Oceanique, or CNO, and the Ocean Technology and Energy Corporation, or OTEC, fighting over the remains of the third largest aqua corp, the IHA. Once OTEC contracted Militech to safeguard the security interests, they gained the upper hand. Seeing this, CNO responded by airdropping Arasaka forces as a flex. Thus, the slugfest began. At first, netrunners, highly skilled hackers, were hired to deploy legions of malicious malware and viruses, seeking to attack their pockets by going after stock holdings, caches filled with data, and hurting that bottom line. Sneak jabs were thrown by issuing covert hits, targeting mid-level executives, and airing that dirty laundry. This brought further economic depression, forcing NetWatch, being created in 2013 as an online watchdog, to place embargoes on Arasaka and Militech. However, these corporate giants saw blood, and this was by any means. A truce was offered to OTEC and CNO by the Eurobank, but came too late. The real conflict was stirring between the two security giants. In early 2022, the second phase, referred to as the Shadow War, began. The Shadow War was done openly and viciously. Raids were issued on opposing enemy facilities, damage was dealt via the net, netrunners released even more malicious viruses so dastardly coded that it outlived some of their creators, leaving parts of the net demented, dangerous, and dark. In 2022, the gloves finally came off and became a knuckles match, marking the third phase, the Hot War. Full-on conflict exploded. Both corporals refused to pull any punches, sending haymakers and his no-holds barred, destroying cities, killing off populations, and bringing halt to global trade. Seeing no end in sight for these two corpos, countries began to withdraw approval. Others openly blamed the two corporations. Cities around the world began seizing properties and denouncing the corporals from their countries. European countries followed the lead of the Free State of LA when they annexed Arasaka and Militech headquarters in the city. However, soon after the Arasaka Tower was occupied, it was soon flattened by a nuclear warhead. Talk about convenient. Till this day, this attack is still considered a mystery. Much speculation and debate are still prevalent. Many say a legendary rocker boy known by Johnny Silverhand had a hand in the matter. He was never seen again after the attack. There is some evidence that shows that Johnny and some other members of the Atlantis group truly were involved. Comment down below if you want me to put on my detective hat and connect the dots to that mystery. In 2023, the drums of war ceased after the Japanese government pressured Arasaka to concede, handing them that L. The third major event, the post-war, lasted from 2024 through 2035. The new United States, critically weakened, functionally became the dictatorship run by President Elizabeth Crest, and has been so since her state of emergency declared during the Fourth Corporate War. Under martial law, much of the country was crippled by executive control. Consequently, Arasaka was held to account for the sins, accused of detonating the nuke that flattened most of Night City Center. Rumors persisted it was Militech who had a hand in the detonation. Pressured by civil unrest, President Crash claimed to keep a close eye and nationalize their assets to bolster federal rule. Technological advancements halted because corporations could barely stay afloat. The government moved to settle social unrest by rebuilding communities. In some areas, in others, President Crest refused to help, in particular, the residents of Night City. Left to fend for themselves, they saw this as an opportunity and became a free state, declaring the Free State of Northern California. This period also marked when NetWatch fortified the net by erecting the Black Wall, concealing the old net, fending off any attempts to access it. How NetWatch went about erecting this wall is still a mystery. Many say a secret deal was done behind the scenes. The stubborn residents of Night City began the rebuilding process, taking several decades to recover in the time period. The reunification occurred from 2035 through 2069. Most of what was once inhospitable has transformed into a community. With the help of Nomads and Soft Corps, Night City was rebuilt. The net, remaining dark and mysterious as ever, was not readily available. Netrunners tried for years but still couldn't crack the Black Wall. Net traffic between isolated connections was allowed but closely monitored by NetWatch. Rumors spread the US government sought to scapegoat Arasaka. However, the residents were sick of the government involvement, preferring the Asian company return instead of being subjected to any federal interjection. The down but not out Arasaka continued to cling on, facing humiliation. Profits went to war reparations, all the while secretly dealing with internal conflict that spurred a civil war among the ranks. CEO Saburo Arasaka pulled through all these hardships. This megacorp began to get its footing once a few lucrative contracts re-established them as major players in the security and weapon manufacturing sectors. Over in Europe, the hobbled megacorps that were left standing post-war were losing their grip and faced opposition from newly backed companies who were still controlled and favored by a national European government. Conflict couldn't be avoided much longer. At the tail end of 2069, an attempted reunification occurred by newly elected president Rosalind Mayers, a proposal to rein in the Free States under the guise of bolstering the nation. Advancing towards another battle, the new US declared war on these renegade territories, with Militech supplying the guns. Formerly known as the Reunification War, kicked off. With all the highest technology ever achieved at the fingertips and all that cyberware, it was also nicknamed the Metal War. The residents of Night City feared conflict was inevitable, but managed to avoid it. The previous wars and terrible corrupt meddling has given them no hope. In early 2070, the NUS set up camp in the outskirts of the city. Though it came down to the wire, Councilman Lucius Rain took decisive action thanks to his decade-long career service. Arasaka got the call. Only a few days had passed when Arasaka troops moved in. Not long after, NUS forces withdrew from the area. Even though the politicians from Night City had Arasaka as an ace, tensions did not cool down. Wanting to avoid another global catastrophe, and with the deliberate assistance from Arasaka, a treaty was forged. Many sides saw this as a middle-of-the-road approach, leaving no party from the Free States nor the new United States better off, but the Treaty of Reunification was signed. On the new United States side, they agreed to terms on participation and coordination with federal affairs. The Free States gained autonomy, thus leaving Night City a global hub, independent from laws and government interventions. Investments were made, deals were struck, money flowed, and many got rich, though many remained poor. Posed as an ally, Arasaka was granted permission to rebuild their headquarters right where the previous fallen tower was nuked. Now our current timeline. As we set off on our own adventure and see what the Night City has to offer us, we can expect a high crime rate, more civil unrest, and climate change is the most unpredictable factor. Not to mention the concealed mantis blaze that can strike from anybody, even that granny from 3A with the nipple blasters with the pew 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 pew. We will have our own issues to deal with and experience our own loss. However, if you play it right,
We're rich! Oh, we're going to the major leagues, Jeff.
has become a legend in the world with